guys, it's Mykas Magic Juggle back with another video for you today. Today we are going to be talking all about the Jackson's chameleon. Their scientific name is Triceros jacksoni or Camellia Triceros jacksoni. I noticed there was not a lot of videos specifically about Jackson's chameleon care. And just about them in general. So I thought it would be great to give you guys a video talking about the facts and specific care for Jackson's chameleons. This goes for Jackson's chameleons, and although they are common with other chameleon species, they do have different requirements. So let's get started. So for some facts, let's start out with some facts about them. Jackson's chameleons are native to the woodlands and forests at altitudes of 5,250 feet to 8,010 feet altitudes. And these forests that they're native to are in south central Kenya and northern Tanzania. The rainfall there is about 50 inches per year, and the temperatures there in their native habitat range from 61 to 81, max 85 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, and at night 39 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit. That is their natural habitat. Also found in the wooded areas of some nearby Nairobi suburbs. You can find the Jackson's chameleons there. And there's a subspecies called the yellow-crested Xantholophilus. Was later introduced to Hawaii in 1972, and unfortunately it is now considered an invasive species in Hawaii. They are on all the main islands of Hawaii now. And they were same subspecies, yellow-crested, was also introduced to Florida, and I believe also California, which they're less common in California, but they are found in Florida. The dwarf Jackson's chameleon is the subspecies found in Tanzania, specifically on Mount Meru in the Arusha region. In the wild, in their native habitat, Jackson's chameleon's diet consists mostly of small insects, but they will also prey on centipedes, isopods, millipedes, spiders, small lizards, small birds even if they have to, if they get desperate, and snails. One really interesting thing about Jackson's chameleons is, if I'm not wrong, they are the only chameleon species that gives live birth rather than laying eggs. And they can give birth to anywhere from 8 to 30 live young after a 6-month gestation period. That's a lot of babies. In captivity, they can be expected to live anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Probably a little less in their native habitat, just because they have so many natural predators. Their size is about 9 to 13 inches from the tip of their nose to the end of their tail. There are the different types of Jackson's chameleons. There's the dwarf Jacksons, which I mentioned, only found in the Mount Meru region. The yellow-crested, which is the largest variety breed in captivity since the 1980s, and the most largely found in the pet trade. And the Camellia jacksoni is more rare and is found in the Nairobi area of Kenya. And then there's the rainbow Jacksons, which is has very more color pigmentation. So it's very colorful, has more blues and yellows. All right, so that's the facts that I have. All of them I find very interesting. Just to give you some background on their natural habitat. Now let's get into captive Jackson's chameleons and how to care for them, some specific care requirements. So for the cage, the enclosure size, the minimum requirement is 3 foot tall by 2 foot wide screen enclosure. Now for me, I always say with adult reptiles, in almost every case, bigger is always better. So the more space you can give them, the better. But the minimum is 3 foot tall by 2 foot wide screen enclosure. Now the screen part is important. You can keep them in glass enclosures, but they can, especially for males, if they see their reflection, they could get aggressive. And they have problems with nose rubbing. But they also have sensitive upper respiratory tracts. So if they are in a glass enclosure, you need to make sure you have plenty of ventilation, at least on the top of the enclosure. But it is very, very highly recommended to have an all-around screen enclosure. You can buy these from different popular pet stores and stuff, like Exoterra and I believe a couple others also sell enclosures. I currently have 2 male Jackson's chameleons, and I didn't want to pay the $120 for the right size enclosure, so I made my enclosures custom myself, and it was actually fairly easy, and I'm very happy with the outcome. I will show you those enclosures later in the video. Now for lighting and heating. So the daytime temperatures, you want them pretty much the same as their native habitat for the most part. So for the daytime, you want around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take a few degrees, like 72 degrees to 78 degrees. And for the nighttime, you want a temperature drop. It is good to have that temperature drop because Jackson's chameleons prefer a cooler environment. So it's nice to have that drop to about 70 to 65, even 62 degrees Fahrenheit at night. For the lighting, it is required to have, it is a must-have to have a high quality UVB, not UVA, UVB lighting. The most highly recommended is a tube light that is a T5. T8s will work, but they just don't provide as much quality. T5 is higher quality. So again, it is a must-have. They have to have that UVB lighting in order to properly digest their food and just to absorb all that light into their color pigmented skin. So you want a preferably tube bulb or strip bulb that is a T5 bulb. And that's good for the lighting and heating. If you live in a colder area, you're probably going to want a ceramic heater. But during the summer, if it's about 72 in your house during the day, then and no lower than about 62 at night in your house during the summer, then you don't really need any kind of heat. And if you do provide, even when you do provide heat, you don't want it to be too hot because, like I said, they do prefer cooler temperatures. So, yeah, let's move on to humidity and water. So, you're going to want about 50 to 80% humidity in their enclosure. Now, I know this can be difficult in a screen enclosure. Like I said, they require lots of ventilation. But there are ways you can add live plants help with the humidity if you use live plants. You can also add in sphagnum moss on the bottom to hold in moisture and put off humidity. There are foggers, and there are different ways to get around it. But you want about a 50 to 80% humidity, preferably a higher humidity during the day. And also for water, it is very rare for chameleons, especially Jackson's chameleons, to drink from standing water. They don't see it very well. So you can provide a water bowl, but you're also going to want to provide some kind of moving water. So misting, you're going to want to mist your whole cage for your Jackson's chameleon at least once a day, if not 2 to 3 times. Minimum is once a day, but it's highly requested to do 2 sprays a day. And this is because most of the water intake they get is from they go and they lick the water droplets off of the leaves. And that's how they drink the water, because they can see those moving leaves and that moving water on the leaves of the plants. So that's how they get their water. Whereas standing water, they can't see it very well. So that's their main water source is going to be when you mist their cage. Like I said, you can provide a water bowl on top of misting, but not standalone by itself. It could be also good they have some waterfalls that you can get where the chameleon can see that running water. You can use that, but again, you're still going to want to mist at least once, twice, if not 3 times a day. Things I highly recommend to keep humidity and water is a water dripper. So Exoterra has a very cheap, it's like $15 for a 1 gallon dripper. It comes with the whole system. It's just the cheaper way to get a dripper, and what a dripper is it just slowly has a consistent drip onto the plants so that they have the Jackson's chameleons, and really all chameleons, will have a constant water supply. I highly recommend those, and one thing that has saved my life with humidity, because I live in Arizona where it's very dry most of the year, is a reptifogger. A fogger is amazing for my tropical animals. I keep it on, and it helps them shed properly. It gives them really nice humidity, and my chameleons will just stand under it and close their eyes, and I've seen them just stand there under it and love absorbing all that moisture. So highly recommend a reptifogger and a dripper. There are other misting systems that you can get, like the Mist King is a popular one, but they are expensive, and you take a little bit more to set them up, but they are really good. I recommend them as well. They work really well. Although I don't have one, I've seen setups, I've seen people use them, and it works great for them. So you can look into the Mist King or other misting systems. For the enclosure decorations and what you're going to put inside your enclosure, I highly, highly, highly recommend going all live plants. Now, this can be difficult because live plants are another thing you're going to need to take care of. But I've found it not too difficult, actually. So I highly recommend the live plants. They're going to provide humidity, a more natural habitat. They're going to grow in, and they're going to hold in that moisture and provide the drips of water on them that your Jackson's chameleons need to drink. You can use live fake plants as well. You can use a mixture of live and fake plants, whatever you prefer, so long as you provide plenty of foliage. You need lots of foliage in there for them to feel safe and blend in with, and coverage, safety. You're also going to want varying sizes of climbing branches. You want them both vertically and up and down. You want them going in all directions, anywhere from little tiny ones to big fat ones. You want varying sizes and lengths of climbing branches all over the enclosure, because they do love to climb. Jackson's chameleons love to climb. I found them on the top of my enclosure before. So one thing I will mention is if you go the live plant route, now you can have live plants without going fully bioactive. I have not gone fully bioactive, but in my chameleon cages, they are all live plants. You can choose to keep those plants in pots on the bottom and just a bare bottom on the bottom, or you can plant them in dirt and have substrate on the bottom. If you go the live plant route, you're going to want to be triple sure, double check yourself. They have lists on the LLL Reptile website and places like that of reptile safe plants. You are going to want to make sure that your plants are reptile safe and non-toxic, because although it's very rare for Jackson's chameleons to eat their foliage, they could get a mouthful of it and they might nibble on it, and you're going to want to make sure that there's no toxins if they do ingest it or anything like that. So you want to make sure you have reptile safe plants. Pothos is a very popular one, and it grows big and full, and I recommend that one especially. But there are several others, umbrella plants, ficus trees, just to name a few. For substrate, you're going to also, if you're doing live planted in substrate, you're also going to want to make sure you have a reptile safe substrate. Now, although it is rare, especially for male chameleons, to go down to the ground, if they do get a piece of it in their mouth or something, you're going to want to make sure it's reptile safe. No pesticides, no kind of plant growth stuff that's going to be toxic to them. So a really good one is the Eco Earth, which is a coconut fiber with an organic or an organic soil underneath it. Those are safe, and there's plenty of other safe ones as well. Forest Floor by Exoterra, I believe, makes a good one. But you're going to want to make sure that substrate is pesticide free and reptile safe. One more note on that: if you get your plants from like Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, again, make sure they're reptile safe, but you're going to want to knock off all of that soil from those plants, wash off the roots, and plant in a reptile safe substrate. You don't want to add the substrate from the store into the enclosure, because they could have pesticides and toxic materials for your reptiles in it. So make sure you wash off those roots and wash off the leaves of the plant as well, because the chameleon is going to be drinking off of those leaves. All right, and to the last part of my video, we're going to be talking about diet. So I mentioned what Jackson's chameleons eat in the wild. They are almost completely insectivores. They are insectivores. They will eat mainly roaches and small bugs. So there are plenty of options in the reptile trade to get good feeders. Most commonly is crickets. So just to list some of the most common feeders you can give are crickets, dubia roaches, other kinds of roaches, waxworms, superworms, mealworms, silkworms, hornworms, grasshoppers, and fruit flies for young chameleons. Now, of course, you're going to want to gut load all of your feeder insects. That means you're feeding your insects either the same food that you would feed your animal, healthy greens and vegetables. They even have cricket grub that provides making sure your insects are eating all those vitamins that are required for the animal you are feeding them to. So a couple things to be careful about when feeding are with superworms and mealworms especially. They have a hard exoskeleton that they shed off. So if you feed too many of those to your Jackson's chameleon, it could potentially be dangerous because it is very difficult to digest. It takes a little more energy and juices to digest that hard exoskeleton. So you can feed them the superworms and mealworms, but in moderation. Don't use it as a main source. And also for the hornworms and the waxworms, and also silkworms, they are very high in fat. They are very fatty, and if you're not careful, you could, and you're feeding waxworms and hornworms too much to your Jackson's chameleon, they could become obese. So feed those in moderation as well. Waxworms work and hornworms work great as treats. And also if your chameleon is a little on the lean side, a little bit skinny, they work great to fatten them up. And they do have some good protein contents in them as well. But just feed them in moderation so that you don't have an obese Jackson's chameleon. Dubia roaches are highly, highly, highly recommended. One of the best feeders you can get. They are high in protein, high in nutrients, and they work really well. But for Jackson's chameleons, I recommend doing a varied diet. So mix up these different bugs and stuff that you can give them. Give them hornworms and waxworms as a treat, or if you're trying to fatten them up, just create a mixture because that's their natural diet. In their natural habitat, they eat all kinds of different bugs. So it's good to provide more than just one or two, or even three kinds of insects to feed them. Alright, so to end this video, I'm going to show you my Jackson's chameleon enclosure. As I mentioned, I have two male Jackson's chameleons in two separate enclosures, so I'm just going to show you their enclosures. So the first one is right here, and it is a custom made, as I said. I used a blue barrel and mesh, but it's working really well. The foliage is starting to grow in here. I have the UV strip bulb here, very bright, and my chameleon, it's kind of hard to see, he's back there, I don't know if you can see him, but that is Thor. His name is Thor, and he's doing great in this. Now this is about just under a 3.5 feet tall and about 2 feet radius. Almost a 2 foot radius, yeah. So, yeah, he's doing really well in there. And I'll show you my other Jackson's chameleon enclosure. It's exactly the same, just different plants. And he's actually outside right here. He is right there. So you can see he's doing really well, and he's got a highly planted enclosure. He also has the same UVB bulb. And here's that dripper I was talking about. So I think that pretty much ends the video. I will be coming out with more videos like this about different animals, the facts about them, and how to provide for their care. And thank you for watching. This has been Mykas Magic Jungle. Hope you enjoyed. Please comment and subscribe to what you'd like to hear next. And thank you. Bye.